There's John.
Where'd it go?
Oops, let me get my stuff ready here.
Uzo's got video today.
Hi, everyone. Well, for whatever limited amount of time, my reception out here is terrible.
Yeah, save yourself and.
We've got a full slate now. John's here.
Just do it now.
Yes, I am.
Right.
Sorry, I was running a couple minutes late.
So, welcome everyone to the Town of Essex Planning Commission meeting. Sharon, are you ready? Or Darren, who's clicking off?
I am ready, and Darren is recording.
Okay.
As well.
So, Darren, do you have the preamble for this ready? You're on mute.
There we go. Yes, I do have it available. Yes, we are recording. Let me put that up on the screen.
Yeah.
All right. You can read it this time, Dusty.
I, Dustin Brusso, as chair of the Essex Planning Commission, find that due to the state of emergency declared by Governor Scott as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to Addendum 6 to Executive Order 01-20 and Act 92, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Somebody's got some background noise. You can mute while we're doing this. In accordance with Act 92, there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting. I got the word right. However, in accordance with the temporary amendments to the open meeting law, I confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by video conference with additional access through telephone. We are using Microsoft Teams for this remote meeting. All members of the Planning Commission have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through Teams, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if desired, participate in this meeting. Planning staff will provide instructions for the public participation using Teams before the hearings are open. Providing public notice of instructions for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting, including how to access the meeting on Teams with a computer, smartphone, or regular telephone in our posted meeting agenda. Instructions have also been provided on the town website at www.essexvt.org/agenda center. Click on your government, then agendas and minutes, and navigate to the desired meeting date. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please use the chat feature within Teams, which is Alt-H, email or call OESO at omakuku@essex.org or 802-878-1343. D, continuing the meeting if necessary. In the event the public is unable to access this meeting, it will be continued to a time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. So let's begin the meeting by taking a roll call attendance of all PC members participating in the meeting.
Dave Raphael, present.
John Mangan here.
Joshua Knox, present.
Ned Daly.
Johnny?
John Schumacher, present. Ready.
And I'm Dustin Brusso, and I'm also present. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking, right? All right.
And Dusty, before you dive right in, I do want to point out for members of the public, I have muted everybody because we were having some background noise. If you do want to speak, make sure to unmute yourself. You can do that by, if you're on the Teams app, hovering over the middle, a bar will come up and hit the microphone button. If you're calling in with a phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. We cannot unmute you.
Dusty, I believe we have a Villager Planning Commission member in the audience.
That would be good to know. Who is present?
Diane. I believe it's Diane.
Yep. Diane, welcome.
And we also have Robin.
Thanks.
Robin's here too?
Yep.
We can keep him muted. Okay, folks, I'm going to administer the an oath at this point, and it is presumed that anyone who is participating in the discussion is accepting of that oath. If not, please let us know. For anyone who is participating, do you swear that any testimony you present this evening will be truthful to the best of your abilities?
Yes.
Without hearing negations, I'm going to assume that everybody is saying aye. Moving on, the first section on our agenda this evening is public comment. Does anyone have any commentary they would like to offer to the Planning Commission for items that are not on the agenda?
Or for the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, no consent agenda. My bad.
Yep. Okay. I thought I missed something there for a moment. Hearing none, I'm moving on to the next. Yes? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a discussion with the Planning Commission on officer positions, which is chair, vice chair, and clerk. And at this point, I'm actually, for the next two items, going to turn the gavel over to Owiso as the Community Development Director to manage both the discussion and the election of officers, since we have a full slate of commissioners present this evening. Owiso, please.
Hi, everyone. So I hereby open the discussion on the election of officers. Do you need any time to talk amongst yourselves about who you would like for the positions?
I propose that we nominate the current slate of officers.
That's Shu?
Yep.
I second.
Well, excuse me. So election of officers comes as number 3. Right now we're on 2. Do you guys want to have discussion? So if none, we should move on to number 3.
Yeah, I'm just proposing that we nominate everybody that's already in position. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is anybody else looking? I mean, this is a time to jump in with both feet if you'd like to.
I have no discussion. John Mangan.
Dave Raphael, I'm good.
Joshua Knox, I'm good with that too.
Ned?
Ned, I'm good.
Okay,
John Alden, I second the motion.
perfect. Okay. Looks like we've got a slate of officers.
So we'll
That's
take
all
a,
the same. Oh, I'm sorry.
so all in favor?
Aye.
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 The record shows 7-0. Current slate of officers.
All right. With
Since everyone
that,
appointed or reselected.
with that, I will take the mantle of the gavel back, the virtual gavel. Thank you, Owiso. Thank you, staff, and thanks, commissioners. I think we're going to keep working.
You're welcome. Congratulations.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a continued public hearing for a minor site plan. This is Joe Bissonette and Chad Riley. This is a proposal to operate a food truck located at 217 Sand Hill Road in the medium density residential R2 district. Staff.
So this is Sharon Kelly. I'll start off by saying that as the Planning Commission is aware, I requested a legal opinion on this application to make sure there was no conflict between the Zoning Board of Adjustment approval and how the PC goes forward with its review. This is confidential information and was only shared with the Planning Commission. And I will assume that you all have read the opinion. I will now just go through as you observed.
So let me jump, Sharon. Let me jump in for a second, please.
Sure.
To the commissioners, if there's a desire to address that legal opinion, we'll need to go to executive session. Does anybody have any concerns or feel a need to review that decision?
This is Shu. I'm good with it.
Okay. Hearing none, Sharon, you're on again.
Okay. So going to the staff report, I'll just call out some changes that I made, which the new finding 4 is as a result just stating that it came off its consent agenda and was continued due to a tie yay and nay vote. Finding 6, I just added the plan to the existing finding that was there. Finding 8 is a new finding, and it bullets basically what the Planning Commission was looking for, which includes pictures of the trailer, a street view showing a no left turn sign that was requested, a cut sheet for the gray water, and they also will add the pump that one of the commissioners was asking for. And finding 9 is also new, and that's basically addressing Public Works. In short, Public Works is of the opinion that the proposed access exceeds the minimum design standards for safe stopping, sight distance, and turning movements into or out of the site should not be restricted. So they were not in favor of having a left turn signage. Finding 10 is new, and 11 is new, and basically, as it states in there, coincidentally, the fire chief was working on amending the traffic ordinance, so they are going to put something in the ordinance that says no parking on Sand Hill. But that's going to take a little bit of time. So in the meanwhile, Charlie Cole, Fire Chief Charlie Cole, has agreed to put in a quick memo to the Select Board / Manager's Office asking for a fire lane, which should come very quickly. But until that comes, the applicants have also agreed to put some no parking on street in close to the right of way, not in the right of way of the parcel. Let's see. Finding, one second, sorry. And I guess that jumps to conditions. 5 is new, which again just now makes it a condition to install the water float with the alarm for the gray water. Condition 7, I added as far as the no parking on street until such time as the fire lane and traffic ordinance are approved, and the applicant shall continue to monitor. So that's basically all I have. I believe it captured all of your concerns previously.
Okay.
And that's all I have right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Sharon at this stage?
Ned, I have one question. I think we were given a pretty complete package, but your description does not include the fact that there's also going to be a portable toilet in the back in that enclosure, and that should be on the plan also. If that's correct, which I believe it is, having looked at the paperwork you sent to us.
Okay, so I believe I missed that, so I would ask Chad to speak to that.
Hi, Chad. Chad Riley speaking. The portalet we have is going to be located in the fenced-in area to right behind the corner, the corner where it says fence, where the arrow is pointing to the fence. The portalet's going to be in that area, in the fence area. That way, just to keep it so no one really sees a portalet sticking out there like a sore thumb.
That, I assume that will only be for the employees' use?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless a little kid really, really has to go.
All right.
All set, Ned?
For now, yeah.
Any other commissioners have questions? Okay, so the public hearing for this is still open. Actually, no, applicants. Does anybody want to offer any commentary? Chad, back to you if you want to, or anything in addition to what Sharon has provided us.
Chad Riley again. No, I think Sharon's covered everything that we all, or Sharon and I have talked about and you guys have requested from us. The only thing that's not on this picture is the flowers and the little shrubs that we're going to put around the parking lot just to keep it so the area doesn't look like a commercial area. We're trying to make it look more like a extension to the park area. My wife loves flowers, and if we can put flowers there to keep the area looking good and pretty, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Great. Okay. So the public hearing is still open from the last time. So at this point, I'm going to look to if anyone in the public has questions or commentary they would like to ask, just raise your hand. Looks like we have Margaret Smith. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, sorry, trying to get to unmute.
You're there.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes, and I'm so sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm sorry I missed the hearing last week. It did not come to my attention until over the weekend. As a longtime resident of Essex, I have gotten stuck at that intersection of Sand Hill Road and Route 15 more times than I can count, as I'm sure have you. And I'm seriously concerned about the impact on traffic. You know, the school buses get stuck there. I guess I'm not sure. Is this a permanent establishment, or is this just for the summer? Because if the school buses are running and you know, morning traffic in normal circumstances backs way up at both Sand Hill Road and Route 15. So I honestly think this is not a great idea. Clearly you've put in a lot of work designing the site, but think about the traffic, because it's not going to get less. And that intersection has been a problem forever. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else like to offer comment or ask questions?
Dustin, I'd like a clarification on the zoning permit. Is a 2-year zoning permit, is that correct?
Each year they will have to apply. So he'll submit one for this year, he'll submit one for 2021, and he'll have to go back to the zoning board for 2022 before he can operate.
Okay, but it won't ever come back before us, right? Just goes
Correct.
past zoning
Correct.
board again?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
And I should say that once it goes back to the zoning board, I believe they probably will not require a continued return to their board. But I don't know that until they come back in 2022.
Okay.
So, Myra, is your hand still up, or is it a new question? You're on mute, so.
Oh, she took her hand down.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone in the audience? All right, then let's bring it back to the table for a moment. Does anybody on the commission have any additional questions or commentary on this application?
Yeah, this is Ned. I don't have any questions, and I guess I would preface my comments by saying, you know, everybody loves barbecue, and you know, it's probably a good thing. The question I have to ask everyone is, as we seem to struggle for years over this Essex Town Center plan and everything, is this the kind of development we want to encourage or support in that town center area? I mean, we've spent an awful lot of time trying to think of ways to attract things to the area, and I think we need to ask ourselves, is this really what we want? I agree that it's perfectly legal, but I think looking forward, because I don't see I see it pretty open-ended. This could be here forever. If they keep renewing the application and there's no greater use for that site. It's just a thought. That's all.
Okay, hearing no additions to that. Thanks, Ned. I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved by Shu.
Seconded by Josh.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Before we go, yeah, go ahead. Is anyone prepared to make a motion on this? Offer a motion on this?
This is John. I will. I think the applicant did all the things we asked of them. We gave all the municipal departments one more shot at really raising a red flag. Nobody did. This is a temporary situation that gives all of us a chance to evaluate what something might be on that corner. I can't imagine this is the highest and best use for that corner, but I think it gives us all a chance to see what the impact of something on that corner does to the traffic. And we will have a chance to come back and revisit that in a year at the zoning board level. And I think that gives us a nice opportunity. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve this application as conditioned by staff.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, John Mangan.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, I will add something to this. I do feel my opinion and thoughts have not changed, that I don't believe that the traffic in that particular area is amenable to a stop and go business. I think it is. I think it is a condition that is ripe for accidents, and I believe that is an unsafe situation from the beginning. I understand from an engineering perspective, if everybody traveled exactly the speed limits that were posted, there would be no issues whatsoever. I do recognize that mathematics the math is solid, but I don't believe that everybody that's driving on Route 15 and or Sand Hill follows the math that closely. So I will be voting against this. Just putting that out there. There's no additional comments. We're going to have to do this as a roll call vote, folks. David Raphael.
Yes.
Josh.
No.
John Mangan.
Yes.
John Schumacher.
Yes.
Ned Daly. Ned. Yea or nay?
Unmute.
No. No.
Didn't hear you.
No.
John Alden.
Yes.
And myself is a no. So the motion passes 4-3. I did my math right. That's a joke. All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. If I bring it up. Don't have anybody got it? Okay. So at this point, we are ready to engage with the Village Planning Commission, of whom Robin and Diane and John Alden, who's sitting on both commissions right now. We're now ready to have a discussion on PUDs. So, Darren, I'm going to turn this over to you for a little bit and tee us up.
Sure, and I'm also going to let Aliso chime in if she wants first. So go ahead, Aliso, if you want.
My reception is so poor that I'm fine with you leading this, Darren, if you are so inclined.
Okay, will do. So thanks all for making some time to discuss planned unit developments. We talked a couple meetings ago at the Town Planning Commission about some of the challenging applications we've had with PUDs and some of the struggle we've had in deciding what a PUD actually is and what qualifies for the flexibility from normal zoning that PUDs are meant to provide. John Alden and John Schumacher and staff had another follow-up conversation where we talked about a number of issues related to that. And those are summarized in the memo that was provided to everybody, which I will share now so everybody can see that. Just a sec. So what we talked about included the fact that we have changed PUD regulations in the past, but the zoning regulations, the normal standards, have not necessarily been revised in tandem. So we have some inconsistencies between those two sets of standards. It's also, as we said, unclear what a PUD is meant to be and why applications come to the PC under PUD as opposed to normal regulations. Some of them don't have a great distinction between the design, and that might merit some discussion of changing the purpose of the PUD section, or being clearer with applicants about what the intent of a PUD is and whether something is a PUD or should be considered a conventional subdivision or application. And then again, there's some mixed messages in terms of what we want for design in the PUD section versus what we want in conventional subdivision, and that we should just try to be clearer about what kind of design and what kind of development we want in Essex, and make sure that PUDs and regular development regulations allow that to happen. It also raises some questions about whether we want to have PUDs at all, or simply make the normal regulations exactly what we want them to be, instead of having these two standards essentially that don't have clear reasons why they're different. We could also try to retool the PUDs as something that is distinct from normal subdivision, but maybe have certain thresholds in terms of number of units or acreage, change how PUDs work in different zoning districts, and figuring out how to make it something that is an incentive and entices applicants to do something beyond what is normally allowed in subdivision. In thinking about that, we want to discuss how much of a revamp of our PUD regulations the Planning Commission wants. What do we want to focus on? How deep do we want to go? Do we want to band-aid existing regs? Do we want to deep dive? A little bit of both. And we should also discuss how waivers fit into planned unit development regs, and whether there should be additional waivers for PUD projects, or if they're already given enough waivers just by their very nature. We also want to look at the village plan regulations and see what we could learn from that. And we have a couple of those folks here to talk about that if they are so inclined. And, in revising these regulations in general, knowing that merger is still up in the air in many ways, we want to make sure that we can learn from each other. The different communities can learn from each other when there's common sense changes that just should make sense, because at least in the town, it's been a long time since a lot of our zoning provisions have been updated. We're going on decades for some. So that's the intro. And I will toss it back to Dusty to lead any discussion, or if anybody else wants to take it away.
So one thing I know John Alden, you've mentioned a number of times that the village has been, I don't remember the terminology you've used, but I'd like to maybe see if Robin could chime in and get a take on how you've been applying PUD requirements, regulations, etc., and basically the usage. Between Robin, John, and Diane, sort of get a high level overview of what you've been doing, and if there's opportunities, as Darren said, opportunities for us to either learn from each other or actually plagiarize a little bit, that would be not a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Robin here. I'm sure one of the things John will say when he's talking is we've struggled a little bit with PUDs. I think in some ways, some people think if it's a PUD, then the design standards should be at a higher level. I can't disagree with that, but for me, that design standard is the site design, not the design of the building. Just because you move from a subdivision to a PUD in a district that does not have any design review shouldn't mean that your building all of a sudden is open for design review. Certainly, we've struggled with the site plan. The nice thing about PUDs is the individual lot size is less. The common area that everybody can get a benefit from is larger. If we could work at connecting individual PUD sites together, all of a sudden we could have linkages throughout the village and the town where people could walk or bike in a way that's safer and create an amenity for everyone, not just an individual property owner. Some applicants have struggled because they see that perhaps in some ways the threshold for a subdivision is less than that for PUD. I don't think it should necessarily be that way. I think that open land's good for everyone. It's good for our diversity. It's good for nature. It's good for animals. And if people are giving us that already, it's a higher standard of design. Otherwise, it's postage stamp lots that has grass, which is, sterile. And everybody gets their own little slice of heaven that really isn't heaven at all. John, I'm sure you want to say something to contradict me.
I do. I'm going to agree with and endorse what Robin said. So
Wait a minute. That's
Yeah,
not
I
John.
know.
That's not John. Who?
Yeah.
Can somebody get that in the calendar somewhere?
Well,
Do a DNA test.
tried to rethink of. I've been rethinking it as I look at both the town and the village regulations, and I'm inclined to think that the benefits of a well-planned site are what we're really after. Although I hate to think that in projects that do have design review on the structures that we wouldn't also go after a little bit more there.
Oh, we would, John. We would.
But the notion that we're giving, what we're trying to do is encourage the developers to give us something that's meaningful in their overall project design, because we want it is really the key. And if that's open space and connectivity and pathways that can be open to not just the residents of the single development, but start to connect, all of those things are really good, along with protecting nature and trying to create more open space that can be used for something besides just chopping it up into, little bits so everybody has their own but isolated parcel. So I see the benefit of that, but I think our language is in both the ordinance, both the town and the village, the ordinance is maybe not saying that exactly, or it's not clear enough what we're after in terms of this improved site design. So that's where I'd like to see us spend some more energy is trying to really outline what it is where our end goal is and how each parcel, each development can join in and support that.
This is Diane. I would say the gentlemen have expressed what has been going on. I would stress that what we've sought has been the amenities and the connectivity to not just other areas, but also within and how everything works. So it's we'd like to see some things that aren't hodgepodge or whatever. Yes, we have, I guess, some had some opinions on some design. We haven't really had anybody come in and just say they want to slap something up. So I guess we'd have the advantage of that. But our regulations could, I hate to say it, they don't stress that something should look good. But we do stress the fact that we're trading and trying to get that open space and trading that for other things to make it quite livable, knowing that things are going to be on a tight space. I think we've accomplished it for the most part.
Thank you. One of the things that struck me when I was looking at both the regulations, and this is something I think, Darren, may be part of our struggling, is that when we're talking regulations, you generally don't talk about ambiguity. And the PUD, by the nature of what we're trying to do, is ambiguous. You know, what is an enhancement? What is quality? What is, you know, the benefit? Benefit is pretty subjective. You know, so that's one of the struggles. You know, we don't want to lock things down so tight that you know there's no say in anything. But you also, if you leave it completely open, then it's very hard to defend it if somebody doesn't like position we've taken. There's some hands raised in the audience here. Who's got them? Who's up? Who's the first one up?
I'll go first since you were talking about me.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with everything that has been said by everyone, and particularly with what Dusty said. You know, the ambiguity is the tough part, and I think it's a tricky balance to give enough ambiguity and flexibility to allow something really great to happen while putting the guardrails on the development you really don't want to happen. And I wonder if PUDs are necessarily the way to do that. You know, I think on a small scale project, it's just really difficult to have a lot of say sometimes. I think on a larger scale with something like the town center or the village center, there's been a whole community master planning process. There's been a lot of work put into these are what the things we want to see. These are the results we want. So I think that might be sort of the way we get those, goals communicated. And I think a process that's based on those goals and maybe is more in the, application master plan realm, which we have in the town, but we don't really use effectively, might be a good way to get some of that. And PUDs, I think we've gotten some really great PUD projects in the past, and I don't think they should necessarily go away completely, but I wonder how much we can take the lessons learned from those PUDs and say, how feasible is what they did for everybody? Are they doing something that's really that radical, or is it something that we could actually make a standard everywhere? Because I think way back when PUDs were created, not that I was around for it, it seemed like they were intended to sort of push the edge of development style and of design. So I think the idea is that over time, as you see projects that push that edge, you maybe take what they've done and incorporate that into your normal standards, because it's clear that that's what we're looking for. So that's just my 2 cents contributing to the discussion.
Hi.
Lisa.
So I'm going to take a different tack from Darren, because I actually believe that PUD is a really great tool to have in our toolkit. I think that we can define how it looks in different districts, and what I'm hoping to get most from this meeting is an understanding more of the obstacles that you've faced and some of the issues that more of what you want to see. Would you consider a good PUD? I have great notes just taken from what John Alden and Diane and even Dusty, the fact that you mentioned that it's ambiguous, and that's on top of Robin's comments. I think that the strength of anything in our regulations is the strength of the language that describes what it is that we want. And I think that if we pay some attention to the language, I would suggest that before we think about taking any of the tools out of our toolkit, we look at it and see what we can do to make it better and really use it to its utmost potential.
And to be clear, I wasn't advocating for getting rid of PUDs, just raising the question, what are they good for and what can we take from that and use? If that makes sense.
Robin, you had your hand up.
Okay. I'd just like to say in general, what we do tomorrow is always better because of what we learned today. And I think the regulations should be permissive rather than restrictive. I think in the village, what we try to do, or have tried to do, is set up a process whereby an applicant can come in and blow our socks off with something that meets the code that we could never have thought of. Now, no matter how well you write a code, someone can come in with something that meets every standard of that code, and you're hitting your head against a wall. But the more permissive it is, the more opportunity there are for creative people to come up with good, new, different ideas. The more restrictive it is, the more people will look for the lowest common denominator to get where they want to go.
Fair enough. Commissioners. Somebody else. Who's JK?
Josh.
That's me.
Josh. Right. Ms. K. Duh. Go ahead.
Just piggybacking on, I think, a few comments ago, the idea of everything needing to be goals oriented, I think, is what's driving me here. And the idea that, just like with the ETC and the reforms there, the idea is we want it to get this sort of outcome. And in my case, connectivity and open space are really big. And so PUD should be a means of getting us there. And I like your comments about getting rid of the ambiguity and just seeing the whole process as more goals oriented. That's what I like about what we're doing in the ETC. Just the mindset going from here are the regulations sort of almost for their own sake, and here is more or less what we want. And then, as Robin said, you can blow our socks off within that framework. I really like that idea.
So do I.
That's all.
Ned here. I got a couple of comments. I think John Alden hit it probably the best as to what we want to do here. I read through all the stuff that was posted, and there are some big ambiguities there that I think we'd be setting ourselves up for some epic battles with developers unless we sort of clarified some of that stuff. And I think that's the goal. I think the PUD concept and all can work to our advantage and to a developer's advantage if we can clearly lay out where we want to go.
Anyone else? Take your turns. Lisa, your hand's still up?
Oh, oops. My apologies. I'm just listening and taking notes.
Robin, how about you? Your hand's still up. Okay, that went quick. Commissioners.
This is Shu. I just, as Darren's review of our little subcommittee meeting there, the discussion points number 4 and 5 are the ones that are sort of more pressing to me, because I feel like the PUD in Essex just tends to get used as a tool to sort of get their application through the door. If you jump through these hoops, it's good. And I kind of like what I was reading in some of the village regs, where it was they're looking for a super project, like Robin said, blow our socks off, show us something that's really incredible. Otherwise, don't bother trying to use this tool. So in a way, I'm agreeing with Robin, but I'm also disagreeing, because I don't think you want it to be quite so open-ended. It has to. They really have to hit a bar of some kind. And I don't know how to put that into regulations. I really don't. But I do agree that if you're going to use this tool, it really needs to be used in a good way, to create open space and create that connectivity and do all the things that we really want to have happen. Otherwise, I'd rather just get rid of it if we can't make it work for us. That's just my quick ambling.
John Mangan. We'll get back to you in a minute, Dan.
I haven't been through enough of these to really have much of an opinion either way. This is kind of an educational thing for me, so I can appreciate the opinions everybody has, but I don't have much to add.
Okay. Karen, your hand's up.
Thanks, Dusty. I wanted to respond just briefly to something Shu said in terms of, getting the blow your socks off stage, but providing some sort of, framework around that. And I've seen this in the regs a couple times, and I always thought it was interesting. There is a definition for creative design that's in reference to some of the PUD standards, and it says, an imaginative plan or conception that preserves or promotes the visual quality or maintains the integrity of the surrounding area of a land development idea to be carried into effect, subject to approval by the Planning Commission or Zoning Board of Adjustment as applicable. So it's interesting because you do have that language in there that says this is what you're looking for, and it's still very open-ended, and it would be very difficult to sort of hold up in court, I think, because and we don't really want it to go there because that's not the point. But it's tough to sort of say this is what we want, and say it's tough to say when you don't have what you want and why. But just wanted to point out that is in there, and maybe there could be more work done on clarifying, as Josh said, those goals and what it is that justifies a PUD.
Excellent. Robin, your hand's up. Actually, Sharon is up first. Sorry.
Excuse me. I just wanted to briefly say, I know we don't like waivers, but maybe a creative waiver within a PUD allows that flexibility to go the extra mile of, ooh, that's really good. Some people might be able to offer that up, but some people can. So that was just my thought.
Robin?
Okay, I just wanted to say that from my perspective, there would be metrics that any applicant would have to adhere to that would be probably non-negotiable. It wouldn't be laissez-faire. But I also sometimes have a wee bit of a problem with saying that it shall meet the existing, standard or quality or character of surrounding area. Maybe we want something different than the character of the surrounding area. Sometimes you can paint yourself into a corner with that sort of thing. It may work for one district, but not another one. So I think that's why there has to be a little bit of flexibility. But if you have metrics in terms of square footage, building heights, types, things like that, I think that if you get the massing and the scale right, and you get the angles, roof angles right, you could have a farmhouse that's steel and concrete, and it looks at home in the landscape. So that's where I think we should be trying to encourage the creative people that we have in Vermont to want to come and work here, because they'll have an opportunity to do more than just design something that meets, a budget.
Oiso.
Hi. Along those same lines, I actually really do believe that we should look at it on a district by district basis, because I don't think that it has to look the same, nor that it should look the same in each district. And it's an opportunity to figure out in which districts it actually works and what it is about those districts could be enhanced through PUD.
Let's see, Darren?
I would definitely second what Oiso said and what Robin said, and add to that, beyond just aesthetics and design, you could look at metrics for things like reducing, single-use automobile traffic or energy efficiency, and say, if you get a certain, achievement in this, that's, will qualify a PUD. And obviously you can't know that until it's built to some extent, but if you can demonstrate, okay, by reducing the parking this much and adding bike racks, we get, this much more open space and this much less traffic, in the modeling, that might be something you can throw in there. Again, it's with a little bit of flexibility because it's hard to nail that stuff down in theory. But performance-based, metrics that actually have a measurable result are definitely something that is, I think, coming into vogue in certain planning areas.
Okay, back to the commissioners. David, you've been quiet tonight.
Yeah, I'm just listening. I mean, I agree with a lot that's been said. For me, it's marrying the intent of the state statutes and just trying to get more to fixing some of the challenges we've had with PUDs in the past. So I kind of like I like where the discussion's going.
Shu, I'm going around the table, so just folks, virtual table. Shu, what are your thoughts?
I don't really have too much more to add other than, again, I just want to go back to those two discussion points, number 4 and 5, because, that's really what I want to get to, or I think we should get to as commissions. Like, what do we want to do here? Do we want to just talk about this, or do we want to ask staff to really dig in, and see where the discrepancies lie, starting with the zoning and our subdivision regs, or what is it we really want to do? I just want to see some outcome out of this. I know I'm being impatient. This takes time. We need to talk about it, but I feel like one of the problems I have is I feel like sometimes the PUDs get used as a lever to sort of get all the other stuff out of the way, and all of a sudden we got this thing that we're like, we don't really like this, but it really fits everything. So yeah, we got nothing to say no, and I find that to be a frustrating process. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but it's happened more than once, and it's one of those things that makes me feel like we just want to take the whole PUD concept and say, nah, that's not for us. We can handle this in our regulations and in our subdivision regs. We can handle it without doing the PUD. But I really just want to see us come to some kind of conclusion about what direction we're going to go.
Okay. All set? Okay. Josh, what are your thoughts right now?
Pretty much the same as before. I just like the idea of goal-oriented for PUD and whoever it was who said like metrics. So, and maybe it's not in terms of the bar being higher, but in terms of if you want a PUD, I think it was John Alden, whenever the last time this came up, like if you want a PUD, it's already baked into the regulations that we as a town are getting something out of that. We've already made the exchange of, okay, you can put more density on this parcel, but that means we can require better connectivity, better open space, better the things that we want that can be measured. And I think that's where I always run afoul, just like Shu just said, of this sort of development where it comes in and we're like, well, I guess we have to approve it because it's not illegal. It doesn't run afoul of anything, but this clearly was not what we wanted. And we've, as Shu said, we've had a couple of those. Unfortunately, none of which come to mind, where you look at it and you say, like, this is not what we wanted, but this is what we're going to get.
Okay. Ned.
Yeah, just to go back a little bit, I think that we have a start on all this with our current zoning regulations, but I'm looking back at a couple of notes I made reading through them today. One of the comments was that the Planning Commission may allow greater concentration or density of land use within developable portions of the PUD if it determines that the shift is necessary to enable innovation in design and layout and more efficient use of the land. That needs to be, I think, better. Things like that need to be better clarified. That is not things that we want to have to pass in judgment on a piece-by-piece basis necessarily. I think we want to set the framework so that, as Robin says, the guy sees that and comes in with increased density and sells us.
Okay.
That's it.
John Alden. I didn't save you for last, so.
Well, this has been a great discussion. I think all the ideas that have come out are hopefully helpful in guiding tweaks or rewrites to the regulations. I like the goal-oriented theory. I like the idea that we're going to put some framework in place, but try and encourage developers to really think outside the box and give us something that works in a much more positive way in order to gain the benefits of the PUD arrangement. And I just want to stress that little give and take has to be really part of the regulations. You got to let them know that, hey, you're not a PUD just because you say you're a PUD. You're a PUD because you are playing the right game. And I think that will help everybody understand, along with some clear regulations, what we're looking for.
Ditto.
Diane, you're next.
Okay. If I knew how to put my hand up, I would, but I'm not familiar with this platform all that well. I would say that PUD should not be cookie cutter. Okay, it needs to be goal oriented. It needs to have the applicant strive to deliver something. Okay, the knock your socks off thing would be the best bet, because that means they're going cutting edge. But if you regulate it to the point that you've prescribed it, you're going to get cookie cutter. And we have applicants who are very comfortable with cookie cutter. And I don't think in Essex that we're willing to be cookie cutter anymore. We're looking for more because this is Essex. So you need to put in the goals. What are you looking for? Okay. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of cookie cutter. There's going to be a little bit prescription, but you need to get them a platform where they can fly. Okay. And that's what you're looking for. And somehow you need to get that working relationship of staff with the applicant, that they don't just come in with, here's the outline. They would have worked with staff to get some of these pieces in there. So yeah, it's a little more finesse. Okay, and somehow we have to describe finesse.
Okay.
And yeah, our regulations of both your side of the line and our side of the line, they're getting a little old. Okay, it's 2016, 2017. Yeah, it's time to dust them off and tell the public that, okay, the next step is. So I guess in answer to your question of, should we do this in spot cleaning or should we shake it out and see what happens? And I'd say it might be time to shake the carpet and let things fall out, and let's see where we need to fix this and do the whole thing, not just spot fixing.
Okay.
Because
Thank
it
you.
needs to be cohesive. That I too, just like Ned, was looking at stuff and said, yeah, there's pieces that don't quite talk to each other anymore.
Excellent. So I'll share my 2 cents and we'll go back to the staff, but I actually am I think more out on the edge than what I've heard so far. And I'd actually suggest we get rid of them completely. And come up with waiver criteria by area. So, I mean, I'm looking at the village stuff right now, section 511, and there's talks about, review standard, proposed traffic circulation, waivers, unique physical characteristics can be used, superior building design. I would actually suggest that we use waivers and be very restrictive with the regulations, but also be very clear in what we're willing to waive on to get creativity. I have felt every time we've seen a PUD come in that it's a question of, I think this is creative. I don't think this is creative. Developers are going to think it's creative, where staff may not and planning commission may not. So let's take it off the table completely and give them an opportunity. This is the restrictive development criteria for this area. On the other hand, these are some of the items that if you come in with something real creative, we're going to do a waiver. It's less ambiguous. It's very clear. We are waiving this because this design is very unique and contributes to the visceral aspects of this environment. One of the reasons I don't think we need it is because we're taking steps to do town center work. We're taking areas that we're beefing up regulations and coming up with design and so forth for certain areas. So I think we're putting too many layers in some cases, too many tools, too many options, and we're getting things coming into the as applications that if we're going to deny it, we don't have the teeth to deny it because it says creative. What's creative? Creative to Ned might be different than what's creative to me or to Shu or to Darren. So I'm really struggling with PUDs in general as a concept because just in the basic approach is we got a set of regulations, but we'll set them aside if you come in with something that's really cool. And that sort of that I don't know. I'm struggling with that.
That's good, Dustin. That's kind of where I was coming from also, that you put it better.
Not sure how.
You rambled longer than I did.
Okay, I'll give you that.
So what I'm hearing from you, Dusty, if I can jump in at this point is, and I'm hearing from everybody is, we all agree we want some goal-oriented, really planning-oriented regulations, and we might want to look at it on a district by district, place by place, section by section level. So I think that's something that staff can probably do, and we've talked a little bit about maybe going district by district, taking the district purpose statements that we have there, making sure those line up with the town plan, and then saying, okay, if that's the sort of development we want to see, or lack of development, whatever it is, depending on the district, what do we need to do to get there, and what's going to make this place look like what we want it to. So I would suggest that's our next step as staff, is do that work, come back to you with our findings and maybe some ideas. Maybe you do some working groups if you want, but that's just my thought.
Owiso, your hand is raised. Robin, I've got a question for you afterwards, but Owiso, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we should also kind of keep a close eye on the state enabling legislation and what PUDs are actually intended for, because a lot of times they're a great tool for understanding how to put more than one property, more than one structure on a property, and I think that it's worth paying attention to the state enabling legislation. That was it.
So, Robin, my question for you is when you were speaking, it felt as if you feel you've been successful with using the PIDs as a tool to be, I say, creative or push the envelope. Is that a fair assessment? And
I think we've been getting better. We have struggled. As I said earlier, we'll do better tomorrow because of the decisions we made today. You're learning every day. My favorite word is holistic. And I think if we're looking at any design, we should be looking holistically at it. It's not just the big picture, it's the nuances. And sometimes at the end of the day, it's the nuances that fail rather than make it a success. So we have to be looking at it that way. John and I often have had this conversation about PUDs and what are we really looking for, and are we getting it, and how do we encourage, Dusty used the word restrictive. I think we should use the word restrictive. I prefer the word permissive, because we want to be welcoming. As long as they meet the metrics that we're looking for, we want to be welcoming. It doesn't mean that, we give up the shop. It means that we're willing to sit down and discuss. I actually encourage applicants to come in to see me, sometimes even before they've gone to their consultants. And that way you're not playing catch up. Once you see an application where they may have spent $10,000, $20,000 on the proposal, if you can talk to them before that even happens, then you're not looking for damage limitations. I tell people that our regulations are not a target to be hit. They're a starting point. That's where we start. And where can we move the application forward to make it better than, for one better phrase, the bog standard.
Excellent. Thank you. Sharon, you've been abnormally quiet tonight. Your hand's up. Guess it's not up. Darren.
Sharon, were you still trying to talk, or
sorry, I undid. Yeah, I did it wrong. So I just wanted to say that Darren, Darren's comments are great. I feel like I want to take all of your comments back and with Owiso and our team and kind of hash it out amongst ourselves as well on exactly how we go forward. I don't want to leave you with a clear path as to how we're going to do it, because I think that all of you have said a lot of the same things but differently. So I think that we'll just work behind the scenes and then and come back to you. And I guess I would ask Aliso if, I just don't want us to lock ourselves into a certain thing tonight.
I don't think we can even approach that tonight. This is
Right.
There's too many moving pieces.
Well, no, I agree. But just with the way Darren had laid it out, it made me feel like we were just moving towards that specific direction. And I think we just need to have some more behind the scenes talk.
I would even suggest or request that if as much as possible that we don't shoot me, but I'd encourage us to staff to reach out to Robin a little bit, because I think there's a different perspective, and we've heard it frequently from John Alden. But if there's an opportunity to get to get some synergy across the community on some of these things, then to borrow his phrase, if we want to be permissive and get people to come to us, a lot of folks coming from the outside don't really recognize that there's a difference necessarily between Essex Junction and Essex Town.
Right.
And we have reached out to Robin, which is why we shared you the village, and we will continue to ask that Irishman to help assist.
I can't jump in that. I had to leave that alone because
I'm here to help.
That can go downhill very fast.
And from one Irish girl to one Irish man.
Okay, there's going to be a fight. Darren,
maybe it's a good thing we're all virtual and remote. Just kidding.
But anyway,
just a quick comment that I wasn't trying to lay out a specific course that we had to do. Just an idea. We should definitely discuss more about how we want to do things internally, and also point out the state is working on a zoning for great neighborhoods project, and they've actually put out some webinars that I've shared with you, and there might be further work coming out of that's worth paying attention to. And that's following Elisa's comment about the state statute. I think there's a lot of people are looking at their regs and giving it this hard look, and we might be able to learn from other communities as well, not just Essex and Essex Junction. So we'll take it slow and give it some good thought.
Excellent. John or Shu, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just a couple things. I mean, even though I've been bouncing around from one side of the fence to the other, Aliso said something that was really important to me, and that's that when the opportunity arises, whether we have the PUD, ability to use them in place or not, I think it's really important that we're able to get the density that we want where we want it. And that if that means putting 1, 2, 3 houses in a very close cluster, and currently maybe the only way we can do that effectively is with a PUD or some other kind of overlay. We want to, if we get rid of it, we want to make sure we keep that ability to do that sort of thing, because I think that's really important as this town builds out over time. I had another comment, but it's already slipped my mind, so I'm going to let that go for now.
And let me just follow up on that, John. And I think that's why I'm leaning towards a robust waiver tool, because it is ambiguous to have a set of regulations for a zone that are very clear, density, building height, so forth, and then just to I feel a PUD often is just a tool to bypass the regulations. Understanding that we want to be welcoming, we want to have development in the right places, but it's odd to me to have a regulation and then the ability to more or less bypass that regulation with another regulation. So it's
ditto. Yeah.
What I'm hearing from everybody really is that there's a really good opportunity. John, your hand's still there. Good opportunity to improve. And staff has some ideas. Maybe we'll be able to take some ideas from the discussion. Does anybody else on the commission have any commentary they want to offer? Any of the commissions? John Alden as a village or John Alden as a town?
No, I'm good. We've had a nice time tonight already.
Okay. Aliso, Darren, Robin, Sharon, do you guys have enough to work off on at this stage? You feel some interesting commentary to work with?
We have a lot.
There's a lot.
Then let's be done with that and let's move on. Thanks everybody for the joining in this. This was good. Let's not make it the last time we gather on some of these sorts of discussions, please.
Yeah,
Actually, I have to say, if it's discussions about moving forward with zoning regulations, I like the idea of being able to come home, have my dinner, and do it this way, pandemic or no pandemic.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I mean, it's not the same when you have an application, but for this sort of discussion, I think it could be beneficial. You're more relaxed. You're not saying, what time is it? You know, I need to get home, stuff like that.
as Ned yawns. Okay, definitely more relaxed. All right, Robin, Diane, thank you for joining us this evening. You're welcome
Thank you very
to stick
much.
around. It's good to have you here.
Cheers.
I think the next thing we have is the minutes from June 25th. Is that correct?
Yeah, I move we approve the minutes from June 25th, 2020.
We get a second on that?
Second, it's John.
Okay. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes that anyone wants to offer?
So something I'd like to correct.
Page.
Yep, page 2, line 51 through 54. I'd like to basically strike everything except your name, Chairman Brusso, and replace with a verbatim of what you said, which I have all written up, and I'm happy to read it if you'd like. It will be verbatim, and it will be in the approved minutes for you. All right, you are approving. So shall I read it?
Why don't you read it? That way that it can be in front of folks.
So I want to chime in on my concerns and considerations or whatever. I do compliment the applicant for bringing the detail in, putting the work into it and so forth. But I will say from my perspective that it is an unacceptable use of that lot being that close to the Sand Hill Road Route 15 intersection. I know the traffic patterns coming off from Route 15 and having any vehicles stack up waiting to turn into that site, in my opinion, creates an unacceptable safety risk that elevates the traffic concerns that I have for that intersection significantly. From my perspective, I would not endorse this application going forward. That's it.
So since that's verbatim, does anybody have any concern about that being inserted into the minutes? Hearing none. Are there any other changes that anyone would like to introduce into the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of the minutes as moved and amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes carry 7-0. Any other business?
I don't have any.
Okay. Let's capitalize on that. I would take a motion quickly.
I move we adjourn.
Who was that? Oh, John? Joe? Second? Who's going to second it?
I'll second, John M.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
5 p.m.
Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
everyone.
Nice job.
And recording is ending.